Hello and welcome to the Moonshots Podcast. It's episode 276. I'm your co-host, Mike Parsons, and as always, I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Mark Pearson Freeland. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Good morning, listeners. Good morning, subscribers. And good morning, everybody who's turning up today to check out a brand new topic on the Moonshots Podcast. And boy, Mike, do we have an exciting one ahead. I had to jump in and say it at that time.
Listen, very excited. I feel like we just want to do it, don't you?
Yeah, you know what? I feel we are in a pragmatic, activity-focused mindset for today's show, 276. And I think it's all thanks to our author, who we're now kicking off a brand new series with. And that author is Darius Foroux. Now, some of our members, some of our listeners might be familiar with Darius's work, but if you aren't, don't worry, because the next few weeks we're going to be diving into his mindset, his behavior, and his attitudes. Now, because we are productivity experts ourselves, we like getting into the details of being entrepreneurs. We're going to kick off with one of Darius's most popular books, and that is Do It Today. Overcome procrastination, improve productivity, and achieve more meaningful things. Mike, occasionally we run into a powerful headline and sub-headline for a book. I think this one's probably up there with something that's definitely promising a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, you said it, man. It's promising a lot. But I do think what we've got on offer for our listeners and members and viewers is an author who might be new to many people. He's certainly not as well known as, your Dave Allens and many of those other productivity gurus that we've focused on the show. But I tell you what, Mark, here's what I think's ahead for our members, viewers, and listeners. This is a full spectrum, 360 degrees look at productivity. And I mean that it spans everything from the mindset to the activities that span the best modern practices. So if you like Dave Allen, if you like Carol Dweck, this show is for you, because we're going to talk about almost like this is as if David Goggins and James Clear got together and had a baby. That's what you got right here. So Darius Foroux is amazing. We're going to do a bunch of his books. Today is all about Do It Today. So Mark, where do we want to start this adventure?
Look, Mike, I think that's a pretty big promise that you've already given our listeners and members. So the next stage, when we do have something as big as this, is to dive straight into the author himself, kicking us off with something powerful. I'd argue that this opener we've got is going to help paint the picture on the ideas of overcoming procrastination, as well as getting us in the mood to figure out how to be more productive. So let's hear from Darius, the author of today's topic, Do It Today. Help us understand what his main important issue is in the world today, a big lesson we can take from the book, and how, Mike, you and I, all of our members and all of our listeners can be executors.
If you are looking for the secret to success, if you're looking for, the answers in YouTube videos, productivity books, self-help books, all of these things are great for inspiration, but ultimately what it comes down to is you have to do the work. And you probably heard this before. A lot of people have said it, but often we just hear it and we don't really apply it. But honestly, I guarantee you, if you apply it and if you execute consistently year in, year out, you will get to where you want. It just takes a long time. For me, like I've been on this path for 8 years. It's a very long time. And for the first several years, it seemed like I wasn't going anywhere, because now I might make just $10K a month in royalties, completely passive, off my books and articles. So when I started, it wasn't even a few $100, right? And even until I was looking at my data, even until like 2020, it was like somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a month. So it's gone up quite high, and that progression, that takes time. Right. So if you want to be successful, if you want to improve your life, whether it's your health, wealth, happiness, doesn't matter, start adopting this philosophy of do it today. And I have an article about this as well. If you haven't read the book, it's for free. You can check it out on my website. I'll link it in the description. But start applying that philosophy, and you can do that right now. What's something that you had on your list of priorities or in your mind, something that you wanted to do for a very long time, but you still haven't done it? Right now, as you finish watching this video, take one step towards that goal. If you want to move to a different city, find a realtor or something. If you want to start a business, create a business plan. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, whether it's actually helpful or whether it's silly or whatever, doesn't matter. Just do something. Take that first step, and then the next day, take another step. That's the key. You have to do it every single day. That's why it's called Do It Today, right? Because if you do it every single day, you get into a mindset of, hey, I am an executor. I start things and I finish them. I just keep going. It doesn't matter what happens, whether I experience any obstacles, roadblocks, doesn't matter. I just keep moving forward. And a person like that will always win. And that is the most important thing.
Mark, being an executor, as I listen to Darius talk then, I can't help but get vibes from Darren Hardy and the compound effect. How about you?
Yeah, big time. I think Darren Hardy's compound effect is standing out in this idea of tiny gains. You know, our members will be familiar with one of our recent shows that we uploaded as well. The idea of getting progressively better each day, I think, is where Darius is trying to lead us here with the concept of Do It Today.
Yep.
You know, stop putting it off. I think break it down into small little manageable bite-sized pieces, and then just start focusing on 1% better each day, as James Clear would say.
Yeah, and you know what was interesting, though, is he picked up on a couple of things that I think are worth breaking out a little bit. First of all, he alluded to the fact that he had been writing and publishing for years and getting fairly minor results. He said really, you know, he'd been, when you do the numbers, he'd been writing for 4 or 6 years as a published author and only getting $1,000 a month in royalties. So could you imagine, like, you've just gone and slaved and written a book. Maybe he was up to 2 books at that point. He only had $1,000 a month in revenue. You'd be like, geez, was that all really worth it? And he was alluding to this thing that actually the winners are the ones that just keep going. And what's interesting is I think many of us, and I think book writing is a great analogy, book writing is one of those things where people, you know, how many people do you meet that are writing a book? Now, what percentage of people do you meet that I actually published the book? You know what I mean, Mark?
Yeah, it's a lot smaller, isn't it?
Right. So he's like, oh, you gotta write a book, you gotta publish a book, and then you gotta write another book, and then you gotta publish another book, and you'll still be going for some years, maybe before you really start going, oh wow, it's really starting to produce some financial value. But I think the point in this, Mark, is that let's say that was a 6-year process. Many of us give up at 6 weeks or 6 months. And there will be these moments at 6 weeks and 6 months where you question everything. There will be these moments at 6 months where you're like, I think I should just throw it all in. This isn't going to work, right? Exactly. What he's alluding to is a huge learning that we have on the show. We've discovered together, Mark, that you've got to do it every day. Keep going, rain, hail, or shine, for day, week, month, on year, and there is no such thing as an overnight success. I think that's the massive lesson. So it's like finding the ability to keep grinding when you're like not seeing results, right?
Yeah, big time. I mean, look, when you break it down like that, Mike, I'm reminded of somebody like Tom Brady. You know, maybe this is a tenuous link, but bear with me for a second. Here's a guy, he's coming out and he gets picked last. Imagine your motivation at getting picked last. You're finally cracking into the big leagues, and that's where you're greeted with. He has to grind. Everybody has to grind. Sports, in the boardroom, setting up a new business, day to day. But what happens is he keeps on working at it day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. And then he becomes one of the most popular
Yes.
and most beloved players of all time. But he started at the bottom.
Yep. So remember this. Michael Jordan was not number one in the draft. Michael Jordan did not win a premiership, did not win a ring in the World Finals in basketball in the first year. I'll give you the current day version. Brock Purdy, quarterback for the 49ers, was not the first pick at high school, was not the first pick at college. Wait for this. He was technically the very last player picked at the end of the draft. Like, the draft was completed for the NFL in America. It was completed, Mark, after Brock. There were no names after him. So he was the bottom. He will announce very soon a $50 million plus a year contract with the 49ers. He has been to the Super Bowl, didn't win, but he's been to the Super Bowl. He's been the NFC champion every year he was in the NFL. Wow. And yet he talks very explicitly about he was the last in the NFL draft, not the first for college, not the first for high school, and he just kept going. I think this is so important to hear, because I think many of us have good will, good intention to do something special, but in the moment when we're in that valley of darkness where we can't see the progress, we can't see the results, we lose touch with our vision, we lose touch with our hopes and dreams, and we give up and we stop because it's hurting too much and we don't see any gain in the future. And this is like a resilience that we've seen in a similar way from David Goggins, right? And we're going to come back to David Goggins again in this show. But I think the point here is if you do something every day, you can make it a small thing and manageable and celebrate. I did everything I set out to do today. All my positive, constructive, positive habits, I did them all today. You just do them tomorrow and just keep going and trust the process. I think there's so much to that, because in those moments of truth, we often abandon trusting the process.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to circle back to the concept of no overnight success. And we are going to hear from Darius later on in the show talk about setbacks being, a source of energy and motivation to go out and get stuff done. But Mike, whenever we do start something new, it is so tempting, whether it's a new job, new industry, just a new hobby even, it gets uncomfortable. Obviously we'll probably talk about running in today's show, as we always do.
We always do.
But when you go for a run, sometimes that motivation lacks. And what happens? Well, maybe it drops off. You're not suddenly running 10Ks as soon as you pick up the running shoes. Instead, you have to put in a few weeks of work. I think the definition of resilience for me and that growth mindset is those people who keep on giving it a go.
Yeah.
Push through that discomfort, don't they?
And remember, Goggins admitted on our show, he sometimes sits there in the morning looking at his running shoes for 20 minutes going, I so don't want to run.
Yeah. It's so easy to come up with excuses.
Yeah, but
I think Darius is telling us no more.
But what I want to focus on there, though, is even the greats have moments of self-doubt. Sometimes find the grind of showing up every day hard. So I think this is important to know, because it makes me feel a little better. Well, geez, if Goggins has problems getting motivated, I feel a little bit better about myself, right? Because we're tempted to think they're perfect.
Yeah. Well, you see the bestseller come out. Ryan Holiday's written another best-selling book. Why isn't mine selling? Why can't I finish a book? All these reasons come up, and as again, to use a phrase from David Goggins, ignore those little voices, write them down, listen to them in a voice note, and then you'll realize how ridiculous you sound. You're playing the field for the first time yourself. You can't compare yourself to somebody like a David Goggins.
That's right.
It's irrelevant, isn't it? So this idea of executing is such a key truth,
Every day.
I think,
Every day.
isn't it? Every single day.
That's
You
the
just got to do it.
And, we should show some love and respect, and potentially we should blow some trumpets for those members that show up every day for us.
Honestly, these individuals have shown up, including our longest running individual, Mike, Bob, who's been with us, we think, for maybe even 5 years. Keep on turning up, keep on contributing, and keep on doing it every single day. So, guys, thank you so much. And without further ado, bring out the trumpet and bring out the red carpet for our hero, Mr. Bob, Dietmar, Marjan, Connor, Lisa, Sid, Mr. Bonjour, and Paul, Berg, Kalman, Joe, Samuela, Barbara, Deborah, Lasse, and Steve, Craig, Ravi, Evert, Raul, Ola, Ingram, Venkata, Jet, Roger, Steph, Raw, and Christoph, Laura, Gayla, Mike, Zachary, Austin, Ola, Andy and Jasper, Fabian, Guhong, Eddie and Lars, Mohammed, and brand new red carpet, Mike. We're having to stitch behind the scenes to extend that red carpet just a little bit, as our brand new members of Marco, Ken, Ryan, Tryman, Natalie, Jason, Malcolm, and Emily are all joining us as brand new Moonshots members. Thank you so much for all of those who are new, older, everybody who's been with us for a long time as well as a short time. It makes a huge difference to the Moonshots show, and thank you for being members.
So to go into the official Moonshots archive, Mark, June 2021 is when Bob joined as our first member.
Well, you know what? That anniversary is coming up incredibly soon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is too. Yeah, good point.
So good for you, Bob. Thank you for being with us and being part of the Moonshots family.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to become a member of the Moonshots podcast, head over to moonshots.io, click on the member button, and good things will happen. What will also happen is once you get that done, you'll be much better at dealing with distractions, Mark.
Oh, this is a topic that I know that we love to delve into, and I'm sure all of our listeners do as well, because it is something that all of us have to contend with every single day. And let's be honest, it isn't something you can just turn off overnight. Again, it's something that you've got to work on, similar to the last clip. So let's hear from Darius this time now, helping us understand why distractions can be a big obstacle in our lives and how we can start to deal with them.
The biggest challenge in today's age is dealing with distractions, right? Jobs are getting more complex. We're required to collaborate more, and we're all getting more bombarded with notifications from all over the place. And as a result, we can't work on our tasks without getting interrupted for like 5 minutes, right? Another challenge many of us struggle with is personal energy, right? If you work 8 hours or maybe even more hours on a day, we only have a few hours for everything else. So a lot of people are spread too thin because we also have our personal demands like, relationships and family and doing groceries and paying bills and working out and relaxing and reading and you name it, all good stuff. But here's the funny thing. You can address all of these challenges that you don't have time and don't have the energy by improving your productivity skills. But like I mentioned, it's important to be aware of what's exactly standing in your way to becoming your most productive self.
I talk about this a lot on the show. Mm-hmm. I want to take what Darius said and take it to another level. I think we're at war with things competing for our attention and our energy. So there's this really great theme of beyond time management. There's this idea of managing your focus, your attention, your energy, which is a way of saying like managing your time is a reflection of managing your energy, which is a reflection of managing your priorities and what matters. Focus, do the one thing. Mm. But I do believe that distractions are so pervasive that it requires us to have this enormous self-awareness that we really are, and I like the vocabulary, we're at war for our own attention. Because I think about something that really drives me crazy. I have I'm very careful with notifications, Mark. So I do not get any email notifications on my devices. I will deal with email when I open up the inbox. and I don't want to be seeing bing bong, right? So with this similar idea, though, I'm like, oh, I do need to get my Uber notifications. For example, your driver's just about to arrive. This is a very helpful notification to make sure that I'm there to meet up with the driver. But Uber use that permission to receive notifications to send me all of their marketing messages.
Yeah.
So I'm getting things like there's a promotion on Uber Eats, and I'm like, this is not a notification. Like, and I really resent it. So I'm like, almost like, should I just turn off all my Uber notifications?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm this sensitive and to it because I know what I'm like. If you say to me, "Ooh, interesting email from someone I'm working with," I'm like, "Ooh, my mind jumps to conclusions." So I do everything in the world to write my journal before I even look at my email in the morning. Just because I know as soon as I've seen my inbox, all my collaborators in Europe and the US will have sent me things overnight. So I usually have a pretty big first batch of email. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look at that because I'll be off to the races and working, right?
Yeah.
So I better just get out that journal, clear the head, own the day. That's the war for attention. And I think many of us don't even realize. And if we do so, I think the critical thing is to be absolutely rigorous in playing defense and asking yourself, do I need this information? Because there's so much coming at you. And I think what Darius is setting up for us, you want to be an executor, man, go to war with your distractions, right?
Yeah. You're totally right. And I think the idea of distractions for me goes beyond just the notifications as well, don't they? You know, we know that Cal Newport has not a vendetta, but he's not email's biggest fan. You know, he thinks it's...
He wrote the book, The World Without.
Exactly. I would say where Darius is speaking to me in this clip as well is regarding my, and you said the word earlier, focus of any task that I'm trying to accomplish. So, for example, let's use a relatable situation where you're working from home. What I find happens when I'm working from home, maybe my focus strays a little bit. You know, we're really handy. I've got guests coming over later. If I put the dishwasher on now, great, they'll be clean. But if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to have to empty it. Okay, I better make some space. So suddenly my mind starts to go down a different path, let's say. Then suddenly, but if I'm washing the dishes, maybe I need to get that dishcloth done. So I'll put it on the washing machine. And then suddenly you've got at least an hour of your time probably burnt. And where I see the value of Darius's call to action and reminder to us that we can be the masters of our time is focusing ourselves and prioritizing what it is that we're doing. And like you say, Mike, writing a journal in the morning before opening the emails is a great way of keeping your prioritization list clear. Because as soon as you do, your energy is taken up elsewhere. For me, that's a big problem. You know, if I do allow a distraction to come into my mind, man, I am instantly going to decrease in my ability to deliver whatever it was that I was trying to do. What are some of your tips outside of, you know, silencing notifications to try and help you stay in the mode when you're writing a big presentation?
Well, I mean, there's all the practices. Do it at the same time, same place every time you do it. Even play the same music. I'll show you how OCD I am about this. I even listen to the same ambient frequencies. So
I've started doing that, by the way. It's good.
Yeah, it works really well, doesn't it? How have you experienced it?
I've been using, listeners and members, I think you've probably heard of us talk about music for concentration in one of the previous shows. The one I find quite helpful, Mike, is 40 hertz.
Ooh, look at you. Yes.
40 hertz on YouTube is, you know, somewhat repetitive, I must admit. But actually that's good because that repetitive melody and frequency
there you go
gets me into the mode.
Yeah. So definitely if our listeners, viewers, and members are interested in this, the thinking goes like this. There is particular music that enhances productivity and focus, different frequencies of music. So if you just type that into YouTube, you're going to get back a bunch of great stuff. I like to take a little bit of a frequency approach with a little bit of ambience, almost ASMR kind of vibes. And the trick here is to play either the same or similar styles of ambient background music while you work, so that they become a trigger to your body. Oh, I hear that music. That means focus time. It works exactly the same for working out. If you listen to the same playlist every time you run or work out, then what will happen is you might be feeling a little flat, but you get that music on and it evokes like a kind of an experience where like, I was actually feeling a bit knackered, but I got out and put on the music and I kind of got after it. I felt quite good by the end. This is how you can help yourself to achieve these habits. I think the other thing to be aware of, Mark, is there's this productivity concept called switching costs. And I'm not talking about switching costs from one product to the other. I'm talking about switching from task from one to the other. And I think we've all experienced this thing where you've worked really focused on something and you've zipped it out and you're like, great, tick, done. Then you need to work on the next thing. But it's not like you can recreate the momentum and flow that you had on the previous task. You cannot recreate that instantly on the new task, because the first thing you go is, oh, where were we? Where was I exactly? And oh, there was a detail. I can't remember. Do I go left or right with that? I'll give you a great example. So I was on a call earlier today, and a colleague of mine based in Amsterdam, and so I'm in Sydney, and we're working on a bunch of stuff together. And I had sent some things over on Monday, and today's a Friday. And in the meantime, we'd had some other things going between us, different projects. So I had been sent an email and I responded and provided a different bunch of stuff to my colleague. And then when we talked today, what I needed to do is say, hey, let's go back to my email from Monday. Just as a reminder, here's what you were responding to my note. I have now responded to your note. I've also added a few things, but I've taken it a step further. So I want to give you some background and thinking before we review the things that I shared. And we needed, Mark, 15 minutes to switch into this topic. Because if I had just said, I did A, B, and C, what do you think? This person, he would have just gone, hang on, could you just walk me through it again? That is the switch happening right there. You're switching. You're getting into the zone, into the subject matter. The same thing happens when we're working on something. You cannot, it is impossible over 8 hours of a day, each hour just switching instantly and being in like fifth gear on the new task. How many times do you think, I might get up and make a coffee? Or you're like, maybe I need to go for a walk, or maybe I'll watch some news for a second. Just, it's like you almost need to detox. You know, it's like, I'll go and put the dishwasher on, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think if you think about this, knowing that you have the tempted to be distracted in the transition, I think that's where we're most vulnerable. So if I'm going to switch from task 1 to task 2, if I'm going to do the dishwasher as like a little mental break, that's actually quite good. But I have to hold myself accountable. I got to be back on the tools in 10 minutes, period. Otherwise, what I am terrible at, and my wife will attest to this, by the end of the day, you're 2 hours behind.
Yeah. I mean, how true is that, Mike? I quite like this definition of the transition. That is the opportunity to get distracted.
Big time, yeah.
For me, some of the ways that I try and establish a habit to take from our master series of The Power of Tiny Gains is to inject a little bit of exercise into those transition moments. So if I'm sitting down in front of my computer, let's say I'm studying something or learning something new, I will probably get a little bit uncomfortable because maybe it's something new. It's a little bit scary. I don't know what it is, so now I'm going to have to figure it out, and I need to go and maybe use ChatGPT, Google, YouTube, whatever it might be, and instead by giving myself a little bit of time to physically move, that then gets my brain into something that's a little bit more akin to a sponge, I suppose, to learn something new. So for me, when I'm switching, I mean, I totally believe you. Switching costs are dire. You know, they take up so much time, and they really do decrease the quality of your time when you are spending on it. Get some physical exercise, move around a bit, change your scenery, get your eyes to refocus on something different. Ideally, maybe a little bit of light, to take from Andrew Huberman's advice to us. The first thing you do in the morning is to go out and get some sunlight.
Love that one.
I'd argue, Mike, it's the same when you're going between tasks.
Absolutely. I think be ready for this war for your attention. Don't get distracted, because as I was saying earlier, it just catches you out at the end of the day. We're like, oh my God, like I'm so behind. And I'm just way too optimistic on that. But actually, when we talk about being over optimistic and planning things out, actually this next clip really does set us up with almost a series of tactics to play out in order for us to boost productivity, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we've already started to scratch the surface of some useful tips that you and I find helpful in the hunt for good productivity. Well, Darius, our master of ceremonies today with Do It Today, is going to now come at us with some more tips, his own tips on how to focus and how to improve our productivity. So let's hand over the mic to Mr. Darius Foroux.
Okay, here's tip number 1. Focus on one thing per area of your life. Pretty groundbreaking, right? All of this stuff is obvious, but let me ask you this. Why are you still doing a million things at the same time if you know that it doesn't work? Productivity doesn't mean doing more work. It means working on the right things. When you focus on one right thing after the other, you can achieve pretty much anything that's humanly possible. Just remember that you can do more than one thing, period, right? This advice is that you can focus on one thing per area of your life. So one thing for your career, one thing for your life, for your relationships, for your hobbies, etc. Okay, here's tip number 2. Set goals that are within your control. To be really productive, you want to change your perspective on goal setting. Instead of setting goals like, I want to earn $100,000 this year, focus on the activities you need to do to earn that amount. It could be something like, I want to spend at least 6 hours a day on my business or freelancing career. Look at what you really control and then set goals based on that. Otherwise, you set a goal that's outside your control, fail, and then give up. Tip number 3, use time blocking. Form the habit of putting everything on your calendar instead of your to-do list. When you block time on your calendar, you realize that you can't do 500 things on a day, right? You have to be selective with your time. And this strategy will help you to have more clarity, and that will help you to get more things done. I've been using this method for years, and it's one of the best productivity tips that you'll find. And finally, here's tip number 4. Use the Pomodoro method. By taking strategic breaks throughout the day, you will get way more stuff done than ever. It's no wonder that so many people swear by this method. It instantly improves your focus, right? And the technique is super simple. You just set a timer for 30 minutes, dedicate that time to one task, take 5 minutes off, and then repeat the cycle 3 more times. And after 4 intervals, take a longer break. And I use an app called Be Focused, but any app will do. The key is to have a visual of the timer. If you haven't been working this way, I recommend starting today.
Ooh, lots of good stuff there. I mean, we've talked about time blocking being super important. I will attest to getting things in the calendar with realistic time allocations helps you go, oh, yeah, I probably got a little too much on the list today. And obviously, having goals. But actually, Mark, I want to call out the focus on what you control, because that is a huge respect to Stephen Covey, Seven Habits, one of the greatest self-help books ever written, in my opinion.
Yep.
Focus on what you control. And we do see this pattern with James Clear and other authors. And I love this idea, because let's break it down just a bit together. In the end, let's say you want to earn $1 million. That's a goal. Now, what you have to do is derive, well, what activities would I do over the course of the year, over the course of 6 months, over the quarter, over the week, over today? What am I going to do today that, if done tomorrow, this week, this month, this year, will get me to that goal? Because in a funny way, once you set the big, hairy, audacious goal, you almost don't need to go back to it, because you need to divert your attention to the smaller, measurable activities you would do right now. Because if you know that sending 10 sales emails a day will get you the $1 million in revenue, then actually you need to become obsessed with what is the best way for me to send those 10 emails a day. If I need to make 10 calls a day, or if I need to make 10 pieces of content a day, you can obsess about that, because you know that is your journey to the $1 million. You don't need to keep going back to the million all that much. Maybe you do for a little bit of a reconnecting with mission and vision and why you're going about it. But all the challenge is in making sure you do 10 calls a day and not 9, or you don't skip a day, right? That's where all the hard work is. So he is talking about, if you've become too focused on just the end goal, of which not everything is within your control, you lose touch with the fact that you could just focus on those 10 calls a day and you have absolute, complete control. And here's the thing, Mark, what I find is when I focus on those 10 calls a day, and I've done that, I actually feel pretty good at the end of the day. Were they 10 bad calls? It doesn't really matter. I did the 10 calls, and I can say I set myself a goal and I achieved it. So I'll get at it again tomorrow. So you get a little bit of a boost from that, regardless of the outcome. What do you think about this, like, focus on what you control? This it's a bit of a nuance, isn't it?
Look, I think this is where Foroux stands out, because he's very, very pragmatic. And he's really pushing us to consider how much our attention is diverted and how we should structure our targets. I like this idea of goals being something achievable. I think we should have, big BHAGs and things that feel a little bit uncomfortable to try and reach as our goals. But at the same time, breaking it down each day has helped me stay focused and get more motivated when the going gets tough. So, for example, if I'm trying to become a marriage celebrant for my friends later this year, and I look at the vast amount of work to try and do, I think, how am I going to do this? This is 200 hours, let's say. Okay, well, let's be honest. Let's break it down to 1 hour a day. Cool. Do that in the time that you've got in the evenings. I do it one day. Hey, I did it today. That's great. Tomorrow, hey, I did it yesterday. That means I can do it again, and so on and so forth. Even if I miss a few days a week, what I know and that I've proven to myself is that I can bring it back around and work on it with vigor and focus. And I think that's where Darius is trying to help us here, isn't it? It's not just about utilizing our favorite techniques of time blocking, breaking it down into tasks, but it is just doing it religiously each day. Trying to avoid multitasking is one of the big things that we've learned in the past. Focus on one task at a time. That for me is such a huge takeaway, isn't it, Mike? If you just focus yourself on one thing, remove everything else. And I don't mean, put on do not disturbs, put your phone on silent, because that's, somewhat obvious to us now. But instead, just focus on this one paragraph one email that you're trying to send without trying to get bogged down into maybe the pitch or the presentation that you've also got on in the background. Just one thing at a time. That little hurdle then gives you enough momentum to get over the next one.
Totally. And it all comes together. What you can see here is when we talk about being an executor, fighting the good fight on distractions, and implementing focus on what you control, Pomodoro, all those things. It's all in service of letting your energy go to the things that you should be working on. It's all about understanding that your energy can do one thing at a time well. So it's important that you're doing what you should be doing. But I think also with this energy, Mark, you can manage it on a daily basis. And each day, some things work and some things don't, right?
Big time. Sometimes those challenges or setbacks rear their heads. And I think we can all say that we've certainly experienced a few of those in all of our lives. But Mike, something that's consistent that we found on the show, and it bears repeating, and it actually, funnily enough, Mike, even our outro clip today from Darius is going to help us understand this even further. And that's that challenges and setbacks, obstacles, to use Ryan Holiday's word, are the way forward, and they can be utilized as forms of energy in our lives. So, Mike, what I'm going to pitch to you, our members and our listeners, for one more time today with Darius's book, Do It Today, is that setbacks can be positive and that we can use them as our energy.
This is something that I've really mastered over the last few years because, look, all of us experience setbacks. The question is, how do you respond? Now, the first step is to not get angry or not let setbacks stop you. That's great. But a higher level, and this is where you want to be, is where you start using setbacks as energy and as motivation to improve even more. And I recently had another setback in my business and in my writing career. And instead of saying, oh, okay, that's okay, I won't let it influence me, I'll just focus on my other plans and focus on my work, I used the setback as energy, and I was even more motivated to keep pushing forward. Because every setback that you experience, you should see it as more drive to win. Every time someone tries to slow you down, or life tries to slow you down, soak up the energy, get pumped up, and then move forward, because life, honestly, is just basically you dealing with one setback after the other. The winners are just very good at overcoming those setbacks and just going after one thing after the other. Because, look, if you experience a setback and you give up, what happens? Nothing. Your goal will not materialize. So on your journey, on your path, you will experience many setbacks. The question is, how do you deal with those setbacks? Do you use them as energy, or do you let the setbacks hold you back?
Okay, so as many of our regular listeners, viewers, and members know, we have talked a lot about Carol's work, growth mindset, and we like, Jocko Willink, problems are good, right? So I want to think out loud together about, is there like a formula, like a scientific method that we can use to prove out that that you can actually create energy from setbacks? And so I'm going to pitch it to you, Mark, and you can help me make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you've got a goal and you want to run 10 kilometers for the first time. And every day you've been training, and then you think, I'm going to try and run the 10Ks. I've never done it. The best I've done is 7. And you try, you get out there, but you run out of fuel. It's hurting too much. It's too hard. The conditions aren't great, and you don't achieve the 10K. Now, many people may be tempted to give up. Too hard, right? But actually, if you think about it statistically, if you know, well, let's look at the human race. There are lots of people that run a lot more than 10K in one go. There are some people that run 100K. So let's put it in perspective. Okay, so I've never run 10K, and I tried and I missed. Here's the formula. If you can accept the premise that if you try enough times, you'll finally get there, technically, every attempt towards your goal gets you a little bit closer to it. I'll give you another one. You're trying to build a successful business, and you've had a couple of different offerings or promotions or different products and services. Well, technically, you know, if there's some sort of need in the market and you haven't quite cracked it, it's a process of elimination. We tried this, didn't work. Let's go to option 2. Tried this, didn't work. Let's go to option 3 and 4 and 5. And you know that at the end, there is a finite amount of options to put this solution in the market. So if you've tried 20 times, you can say, oh my gosh, we must be so much closer now than we were at the beginning. This to me is how you use setbacks as energy. Rather than saying it will never work, you can flip it and go, actually, we're a little bit closer. Not much, but today we got a little bit closer.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, big time. The tiny gains again is rearing its head. You know, just knowing that you're getting a little bit better each day is such a motivation. But I think the other thing that stands out is let's say it's runners, let's say it's Elon Musk going to the moon, let's say it's any number of our entrepreneurs that we covered on the show, they've been through the struggle too. You know, let's say you're writing a blog or a book and you're finding it hard to get through and deliver on that promise. You just need to go out and give it a go repeatedly. And eventually it's going to be relief when you realize, hey, I bet other people have struggled too. I bet other authors were struggling at one point. Maybe I can find solace and motivation in the fact that they got through it. And maybe I will as well.
Well, you nailed it, because he says, as we've heard before, it's not like Kobe Bryant didn't have doubts about his basketball abilities.
Yeah.
He just continued despite that. And what happens to a lot of us, the first time we have self-doubt, fear, and loathing, we abandon. What we see time and time again on the show is everybody has the same self-doubt. It's those that have succeeded find a way of dealing with it, even though they do experience that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, how we respond is up to us, isn't it?
100% within our control too. That's the good news.
Yeah. And without challenges, like David Goggins has said to us before, without challenges, we wouldn't grow. You wouldn't get better.
It's absolutely true.
And it's the guarantee, as Darius is reminding us again, as many of our entrepreneurs have, challenge is coming for us.
Oh, yeah. Get used to it. Get used to it. Oh, Mark, we've covered a lot. What's on the homework assignment? What's number 1 in your to-do todays?
Well, there's a lot of good stuff in here, as it, again, hits all the marks for pragmatism, productivity, and prioritization. So for me, Mike, I think the first clip actually that we had, something that we can boil down into simple steps, actually going out and executing it, just getting it done. It's very growth mindset-y. So I'm going to focus on, you know, trying to get something done, at least a little bit every single day. What's standing out with you as we kick off this new season and series on Darius? What are we going to take from today's episode into the next one?
Well, I'm going to say that I feel like I love to try and be an executor. So I'm going to be with you on this one. What I love to hear is, you know, Darius talking about for so many years he was earning hardly anything from his books, right? It's so good that he was open with us to remind us you will need to grind it out. That is just the reality. And there's sometimes, I'll be honest with you, Mark, I'm like, grinding again, here we go.
How long do I have to grind for now?
Yeah. Haven't I ground enough? in life.
You ground like coffee beans.
Yeah. I'm a fine grind setting on this espresso machine. All right, Mark, I want to say a big thank you to you. Those were some great clips, 4 great clips. The first of a 4-part series on Darius Foroux. So a big thank you to you, Mark. And a big thank you to you, our listeners, viewers, and members here on show 276 of the Moonshots Podcast, where we kicked off our Darius Foroux series with his book, Do It Today. 4 big ideas. Be an executor. Get it done. And when you do that, you're going to have to learn to deal with distractions. And remember, step 3 is you're in control. Focus goals, block that time, and implement Pomodoro. Do that, and you will be on the way. But you will be facing some setbacks, and you need to use them as energy. Don't let them derail you. If you push through, you'll be on the way to being the best version of yourself. And that's what we're all about here on the Moonshots Podcast. That's a wrap.